All right. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is 2 p.m. sharp on the 11th of November, 11/11. For those of you who are into shopping, I believe you understand the significance of today's date. Just go down to Shopee or Lazada, and there's a lot of sales over there. I've just burst my credit card just now, Noni. So that is why I'm on leave today. Purposely take leave for the 11 or 11. My staff was thinking that I'm actually going to do pacha or going to do one of those election thing, putting up posters and so on. No, it is shopping. Okay, today is the penultimate session of our best practices on enhancing student experience forum series. For today is something very unique. Today we are going to listen from Associate Professor Julian Lee Eng Kim about identifying with Generation Z. Now, as you know, Generation Z, or also known as the Zoomers, are those who are born from 1990s, mid 1990s to the early noughties. These individuals actually make up the bulk of our students that we have here today in our campus. Now, the reason why this particular topic is so significant to all of us is because at times there is an understanding that sometimes we feel that both of us, we as the educators and also the students, are on different planets. Different planets, not physically, but the way that we think, the way that we perceive. Yesterday, Prof. Wilma was having one of her sessions. She was talking about gifted children and how do we identify and also develop this kind of students. And one key thing that she identified that it actually stays in my mind is like this. For us, traditionally we are very focused. We have always been brought up to the context that even from our parents and our educators previously is you need to concentrate on your work. You need to concentrate, you need to focus, and by doing so, you will do well. You need to put aside all distractions. But this is counter to what the students are today. Today's students can listen to your listen to your lecture, sorry, and also at the same time having headphones in their ear and listen to music. And it is not because they are not hearing you, but they are, and also taking notes. So they can have 1 year, 1 year free listening to you and also take notes. So this is where the big change is. So I think we are very honored to have Julian here with us today, who will explain to us a little bit about identifying with these generation Zoomers. These generation Zoomers that will, in a way, be critical for our way that we relate to them. Without further ado, Julian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, uh, Gabe.
Mm.
Um, Good afternoon, Prof. Chong, um, Dr. Hon, and Mr. Shankar. um, I have to tell senior management straight up front first. Today is a little bit controversial, so I might not have a job on Monday. Okay, after this session, right? Okay, so sorry, before I begin, um, if everyone doesn't know yet, I would like to wish Dr. Hon Wei Min a belated birthday. I know that she's not in office, right? But regu- it's normal that she doesn't come to office when it's her birthday. Take the long weekend off. So happy birthday, Dr. Hon. Happy belated birthday, Dr. Hon. Okay. Right. So let's begin. Um, I like to always start my sessions with a very interactive kind of and very participative kind of session, as with my students and I think with you guys as well. So now, a couple of months ago, when I was given this topic, I checked with TLC's head, functional head, Gabriel. Did he get the wrong Julian or not? Because logically, I turned 50 this year. So logically, how can a 50-year-old man be giving a presentation about the younger generation, which is 30 years his junior, right? To especially to the university. But fortunately or unfortunately lah, Gabriel just said, "It's you lah." So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julian, and this is a presentation on how you can better identify with Generation Z or Z or Zoomers, depending on how you want to, um, call them. Right. So let's start with what you know about Gen Z. I like to ask the floor what they know about Gen Z. What are your perceptions about them? What have you heard? What have you read? And basically, what are your feelings about them? So I just need to switch to this to see the chat. Okay, you don't need to um switch on your mic. You can just put they are okay. So Prof Chong says they are digital natives, which is correct. Actually, all of us are digital natives, Prof. Oh, Dr. Han says, thank you, Julian, for telling the whole world I am 1 year old, 1 year older and 1 year wiser, Dr. Han. How about the rest? What are your perceptions? Are they non-attentive? Maybe need to define which year. That's coming, Li Jing. Sense of fashion, style, multitasking native. Okay. They want to change the world, but not necessarily don't know how to do. Okay. Very creative. All right. Okay. Okay. Very positive things. Okay. Which um, uh, is sort of a good start for everyone. Okay. Because you think of them as very, very positively. Right. So to answer Li Jing's question, okay, Generation Z, Zoomers, they were born between 1995 to 2009. They will reach, or they have reached adulthood between 2013 to 2027. Right? So number one is they don't know what is ICQ, they don't know what is MSN Messenger, they don't know what is Yahoo Messenger. They've never used it before. Number two, they rarely watch national television or free-to-air TV like RTM, TV3, but really who still watches free-to-air TV. Number three, they were not born when Harry Potter was written. And number four, that is a safe icon, not a floppy disk. And number five, they most probably have not seen a landline at home and not the voice over IP phone that we have in our houses today, right? But why is this generation so important to us as a university, as parents, and so on? Because 28% of Malaysians are Gen Z, right? So these are the students studying in your class. These are the prospective students that your marketing is trying to entice and draw in and so on, right? So the Department of Statistics in Malaysia, published that there is 28% of the population, that's less than a quarter, okay, but still important, right? And the change in the way that you identify with them, right? Basically, wait hey, I got presentation now lah. Yeah. Go. Serious one. Serious one. You can ask Dr. Hon, okay? I got presentation now. Okay, bye. I don't know why Eliza wants to know. She doesn't believe that I'm in a presentation right now. Okay, so Dr. Hon, can you please tell your manager, okay, that yes, I'm having a presentation right now. Yes, they don't know who is Madonna as well. Yes. So why do the change in the way that we have to identify with them starts at the grassroots level. So the grassroots level is us, right? Meaning here, meaning at university and so on. The identification with them is not assumption. You cannot assume that they are like what we did just now. We cannot assume that they are very creative, very savvy, very digital native, and so on. You cannot assume that they will soak up everything that you put on social media, right? And they will soak it up and so on. That is the wrong way to think, and it's definitely the wrong way to speak to them. So, how do we speak to them? Right? So, how do we speak to them? Right. So, back to my dilemma. When Gabriel said, "It's you lah," my brain went overtime. Okay, went overtime because there's so much hypocrisy, and I get into so many disagreements with Dr. Hon all the time about this. And this being, you need to get the right people to talk about the right things, or you need to get the right experts to teach a specialized course. So just because I know how to fry an egg doesn't mean I can teach culinary. Likewise, just because I went through my 20s doesn't mean that at my 30s, 40s, 50s, I can talk about the current young generation. Right? But in my instance, I understand why. I understand why Gabriel and Dr. Horn and whoever put me in this topic, right? And I understand why I've been tasked with it because I deal with them during work hours. I deal with them every working day. I deal with them. Actually, all of us deal with them either at work or at home. So I sat down and I thought for a month, 2 months. How do I give a presentation about Gen Z? Right? It's impossible for me as a 50-year-old to 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 present it to you guys. That it hit me. I'm going to get Gen Z to present the topic to you because it's sure better than listening to this 50-year-old man talk for 1 hour. So today you will have 4 young adults studying at UOW Malaysia KDU, your students, your stakeholders, your clients, your audience to tell you about how they feel about certain topics. And for the sake of fairness, I only put one student from the same school that I am from. So today we have Henry, we have Ashley, we have Eric, and we have Rick. The youngest being 20 years old, the eldest being 23. And they geographic geographically they are staying in urban areas. Okay, so less job for me, more job for them. So basically what I did what any lecturer will do. I gave them a test. No lah, not a test. Okay, I'm mean, but I'm not evil. I gave them 10 questions on 3 major topics, which I thought best represented their generation at present. I recorded the interview, I let their opinions, and basically let their opinions and views speak on the topic. Okay? So, before we begin, there are certain things that we need to talk about. And one of it is the word boomer. Like it or not, everyone in this presentation, me included, is a boomer. So what is a boomer? A boomer is basically it comes from a meme, okay? Okay, boomer. That implies that the older generation misunderstanding millennials and the Gen Z culture and politics so much over the years, right? And we condescend them and we misrepresent them that it has led to this point of them saying this phrase of rebuttal and rejection. This is their rebellion towards us, right? So when they say "okay, boomer," it basically is they're trying to end you trying to educate them. It's like they are trying to tell you, okay, enough. I I, I don't want to understand what you're trying to say. Okay, boomer, and they walk away. That's their mic drop. Okay. So but today's term, the term is more or less generalized with someone who is of a huge age difference, like lecturers and students. Okay, and this is one of the catchphrases that you will hear in the interview. Yeah. So occasionally I will swipe back to um, uh, the meeting so that I can see whether there's actually comments. Okay. So sorry. Right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the word identity, because after all, if I don't talk about identity, then this presentation should not be called identifying with Gen Z. So the word identity for a generation of Zoomers means a lot more than what you think it is, right? So all 4 of them knew their gender pronouns. Okay, so do everyone in this presentation know what a gender pronoun is? It's on Instagram, by the way, if you didn't already know, right? And more companies are making their workspaces a lot more inclusive, right? Now, and then you have this diversity, equality, and inclusive, being inclusive, right? But is it really a buzzword? Okay, for you and me, identity is simple. He identifies as a male, she identifies as a female. How complex can this be, right? He, she, not for Gen Z. Identification for Gen Z basically means they are accepting diversity and to be inclusive. Diversity basically means I respect your gender tag and I respect who you identify as. Okay? Respecting gender tags changes your mindset when you deal with Gen Z, but it screws up your grammar. Okay? So, now, why is respecting gender tags so important? Because this is how divide happens. We are entitled to our beliefs and our opinions, and we shouldn't change them, okay? Because it defines who we are. However, judgment is a whole new different thing. And some of us are very eager to impose our opinions and our beliefs onto this younger generation, right? And this judgment usually will lead to divide, right? And basically this gap between the generation. The divide and the gap is the same thing. So enough of me talking. Let's listen to what they have to say about diversity, equality, and inclusion. So I asked the question, is diversity, equality, and inclusion important to Gen Z or just a buzzword?
I think that we're definitely a lot more conscious about it than our parents' generation. At least that's what I feel like.
Okay.
I think that we're definitely a lot more conscious about it than our parents' generation. At least that's what I feel like.
Okay.
Uh, because our parents' generation feels very dismissal about topics like this. They
Mm-hmm.
like to say things like that's how the world works and you should suck it up and deal with it. But
Mm.
I find that very complacent because you're making the choice not to change
Oops. Sorry.
anything, even though you clearly feel like there's something wrong with it and you're choosing the action of not doing anything. And it's
Right.
nice to be part of a generation that's more conscious and more active about changing that lah.
Okay. So, uh, did everyone hear, right? Can hear, right? Okay. Just checking. Sorry. So, remember, try to remember back to any interaction that you have with your colleague or your friends regarding this current generation. And I will be honest with you, I have used the phrase, it's okay lah, let's just let them deal with it, okay? They will somehow get through it. Yeah, I've been guilty of using phrases like that, right? And 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 the thing is, it just basically means that I didn't want to bother learning about or understanding that students' situation or environment, right? So I've only picked one interview, of course. I'm not going to sit here and play 1 hour of interview for you guys to listen. I will put a link later on for you if you wanted to listen to the entire thing. Um, the student also basically agreed that one student also agreed that diversity, equality, and inclusion has become a buzzword, but it doesn't take away its importance to any generation. But we should listen, or we should look at two words here: conscious and dismissal, right? I take this as a calling that we need to be more conscious of basically the generation's needs, not only for diversity, equality, and inclusion, but everything else, right? We need to be conscious, we need to be aware, and not be stubborn, right? And we need to know how to draw the line between judging someone, um, uh, and basically being conscious of the the topic that is in mind, right? To be conscious, we shouldn't really dismiss these topics. Oh, they learned it from the internet, or they're trying to be different, and so on. Yeah, it's basically about understanding them lah. Um, my personal opinion is I draw the line with identity, right? While I do not encourage the use of pronouns, and self perception, but I'm conscious of it, and I will not do anything to undermine it or change a person's view uh, on it. So when a student wants to be known as a day, I will refer to them as a day, right? But my personal opinion is I will draw the line when it comes to identity, because at the end of the day, right? It makes things easier to work. I'll give you an example. If um, Gabriel suddenly comes up to me and says, you know, Julian, I identify as a male and a female, right? However, and I want to be called they, them. Then I'll be okay, okay, Gabe, no problem. I will refer to you as they, them. However, yeah, Gabe, when finance pays you, right, they still refer back to your IC. They still refer back to your original gender. Okay, so that's all I got to say about this, lah. Right? So, Gabe, you're not they, them, right? Okay. Okay. Next, so very simple. You can see from this picture. The next thing I want to talk about basically is about generational gap, right? Generational gap exists in every generation. It happened with my parents and me. It happened most probably with your parents and you. Now maybe it's happening between you and your children and so on, right? So let's take it easy, right? Let's look at generational gap from the perspective of how news is being disseminated, right? This is a no-brainer. Many of us here today don't even read newspapers. We get our news from social media, right? Either through surfing and so on. Hence, if the university is still advertising on traditional media, senior management might want to relook into this strategy. Yeah, the gap is there. We don't need to look very hard for this. But sometimes these issues, they boil over and they create a feeling of rebuttal and rejection, right? And this is some of us will call this a trend today, but trust me, it's not a trend. So today, youths, okay, as of July 2022, youths, young adults, and so on, they are doing something called evolution or quiet quitting. We must not think that this is a fad or a trend for Gen Z. This is really about two generations not understanding the need of both. We are not listening. Okay. So I use the word we are not listening. They are fed up of explaining. Right? So let's listen to. So what are we boomers constantly misunderstanding about your generation? Okay, which is the Gen Z.
Uh, I think the first of the three things is mental health.
Yep.
The second one I think would be sexuality, and again with the whole gender thing, I don't think they really understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a third thing, but I think those two are the most important. But
Okay.
when it comes to, do I elaborate or do I just stop here?
You can continue on.
Okay, with the mental health, I think it's really important because um people from my mom's generation, which is somewhat your generation, is very just they have a very just do it mindset, just suck it up and do it mindset, and they disregard
Mm-hmm.
their mental health completely, which I have witnessed that like people, my mom's own mental health like deteriorate in front of my eyes, but they have this thing, this like this work, just do it for like this, like this complete like the whole disregard of yourself. So I think they really put that behind. They don't understand the concept between of taking care of yourself versus prioritizing your own mental health and just doing the work instead. And that's why when our generation, go up to them and say like, I can't do this because I have to take on mental health, they just like, take care of myself. They don't understand that because their mindset is just to work, 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 work. So that's my take on it, lah.
Right. So mental health is a serious issue to them, right? Rewind back for us, we used to say it's okay lah, just suck it up lah, just let them be. they will eventually get through it, and like how we got through it, kind of thing. But mental health is a serious issue for not only Gen Z, millennials, but the entire generation as well, even for us, right? More so for this current generation. Their priorities are important. And for lecturers, managers who want to identify with them, we need to know what their priorities are. Okay? We may think education comes first or making money comes first, but that is we. Okay? The ones sitting in this presentation, the ones teaching in class and so on. That is we. So it's important to ask them what are their life goals? What are their priorities? With this, you as a manager, you are able to set the goals for them. Okay. You as a lecturer, you are able to set your learning outcomes for them and your assessments that make sense to them, not you. Right. So we just need to remember that this generation is not a mirror to ours. Right. How we did it is very different from how they are going to do it. Yeah. So moving on, I asked the question: how do you deal with someone who doesn't understand your mental health issues? This is an exciting one.
Um, um, I think before I answer this question, we have to like realize that. I mean, it's to. I don't want to like stereotype like, oh, boomers are this way. Boomers don't
Mm,
understand Zoomers.
mm,
Like, I
mm.
don't believe that, because
Yep.
for me, I just think that the reason why boomers think this way is because of um their environment and how they were raised in. And the reason why Zoomers are able to talk more about mental health and everything, it's I'll say because of the internet, because we have more time to deal with issues like issues with mental health and everything, as
Mm,
opposed to dealing with poverty or diseases or the world war, which
mm,
some boomers or older boomers might have dealt with. So um, we just have to remember that the reason why we are able to have this much conversation and have so much advancement in dealing with mental health and mental issues is because we have the time and the resources for it today. And boomers don't have that privilege. I would say, I assume boomers wouldn't have that privilege because in the past, probably like I would say 50, 60 years ago, they just it was just a different environment. They were trying to survive on in different ways, and I guess mental health was just something that they didn't manage to focus on.
mm.
So yeah, that is just how we just have to be more understanding lah. Like how we want boomers to be more empathetic towards us, we should also try to be more empathetic towards them and realize that they just haven't been able to, you know, um deal with issues like this. And um, of course, since they've lived so much longer than us, they already developed their own way of thinking, and it might be hard to change their way of thinking, but it doesn't hurt for us to try to be more understanding of their situations, how they were raised, the environment they were in. Um, yeah.
Okay. On behalf of boomers, thank you, Henry.
No problem.
Rick.
I think to add to what Henry mentioned, the fact that fact is they've been raised and they've gone through different experiences and grew up in a different environment that would have likely made it hard for them to talk about their issues of mental health and sexuality and self-perception. But at the same time, you can also make the case that um, these people are they're fully grown adults. They should presumably be able they should presumably have the self awareness to understand that their upbringing is the result of their the way they are right now is a result of their upbringing, and that they might have a lot they should be unlearning,
Mm.
and that requires a lot of introspection and questioning your own beliefs. And yeah, again, a lot of good faith intellectualism. Maybe this person could be right, maybe in this case I could be wrong, and asking more questions about that. But um yeah, that's not the rule, that's not the status quo of
Mm.
question of that level of introspection just isn't very common. And um yeah, it creates this idea that kids are talking about mental health more because people are making this stuff up, and I don't recognize your problems because I don't think these are problems. This is perfectly normal thing to go through, and everybody should experience this whether or not it's relevant to them. And that just creates more distance between the generations, because this refusal to speak on the same terms, to speak on the same level, everybody is uh, assuming the worst possible thing about the other person, and nothing, no progress is made, and everything just continues spiraling downwards. Nothing is done about it, and nobody benefits.
Eric?
Okay, how do I deal with someone who don't understand my mental health? Well, like what Henry say, of course we have to be very understanding, right? Well, it's very hard when you have an Asian tiger mom. So when I do understand, like, okay, my mom cares about me. That's where I understand, which is why I explain my view, my point of view and everything. But trust me, if I fully understand my mom, I won't be studying here anymore. I'll probably be a property agent, insurance, Amway, supervisor, whatever lah.
Okay.
So that's which is why I have to, how I deal with it is that I have to raise a certain amount of stubbornness and selfishness towards the people like that,
Mm.
so I can still work my way around like what Ashley say. Oh.
Okay. Okay. So, how many times have we said this? It's okay. We've gone through it. So should they, right? So the thing here is what we lack is we as educators, we as managers, and so on. We lack the ability to reflect, and through this introspection, we need to unlearn certain things that we, that will open our eyes to sort these issues out. To understand mental health, you first need to acknowledge it and not categorize it as is part of growing up. Yeah. Their rebellion, their stubbornness just basically means there's a difference in opinion um, on the issue, and it only just takes one person or the bigger person to reflect and accept. Right? So, now is a good time, or after the session is a good time to think, um, how does mental health affect your work? How does mental health affect your students, your um, your subordinates, and so on. Um, in Deloitte's white paper, May 2022, 46% of Gen Z, right, and 45% of millennials surveyed, they felt burnt out due to the intensity and demands of their work environment. As educators, we need to recognize these things. We need to recognize things that are burning them out. And the suggestion is to stop mimicking the fact that um, every generation needs to go through what we went through. I have my fair share of signing withdrawal forms that state mental health and the toll it has taken on the student and the family as the reason for withdrawal. Right. This was even when I was working in a university college at Taman Mayang. Okay. There was a student who had depression, and I was what 26, 27 at that time, maybe about 30, and didn't understand what depression was. And for the lack of knowledge, my knowledge during the time, I just told the student that okay, I'll sign it, but the thing is, you just need to get through this and knuckle down and just do your work. But that was the 30-year-old me lah. Okay, the 50-year-old me is very different. So how do we bridge this generational gap? That is the answer, right? That is the answer that we all of us want. How do we bridge the gap between us and our students? How do we bridge the gap between us and our children? Right? Let's listen.
I think for me, boomers just need to remember that they were 20 years old at one point too. And yeah,
Mhm.
just that.
Okay. Eric? Oh, sorry, Rick. Yeah.
I think to quote unquote bridge this gap, uh, they have to be be genuinely willing to put in the work in the work in the sense of intellectual discourse, and because the only way to really bridge this gap is to actually discuss the issues that created these gaps to begin with. Um, and to do that, you have to do the reading and the yeah, you have to do the reading, the you have to put in the work to be socially conscious and politically conscious and to understand these topics. And you don't have to be meticulously uh, nuanced about every single thing. Nobody expects you to read up about every article about everything, but to 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 be a good faith intellectual about these topics, and instead of assuming that this is just a made up thing, to genuinely, the first question you should be asking is, what if they are right, instead of this is probably just another farce. And I feel like older generations tend to ask that latter question first, and it feels like you have to convince them that these are real things affecting real people before you actually start going on to solving problems, and that sort of slows the whole discussion down. And that's where the gap comes from, because you're not willing to assume that I could be right, and I'm spending too much time convincing you the possibility that I could be right. So we are arguing about whether or not I could be right or I could be wrong, instead of actually solving the issue. So um, by the time that I become your generation, by the time I get to your age, my generation and your generation hasn't achieved anything. We haven't made a difference. And then now my generation is gonna have the same discourse with our kids' generation, and it's just sort of pushing the boulder up and then down and up and down, and nothing's changing, and we're all sort of stuck in this limbo where we're all just suffering the same problems over and over.
So how would they like us to bridge this gap? Number one, listening with the intention to solve, not pander or accommodate. Number two, we do not need to know everything, but we need to be genuinely interested to bridge this gap by engaging in this discourse. And number three, we need to be brave and step forward. Someone needs to step forward. Otherwise, this bridge is just going to be wider and wider. Okay, so then I went on to another topic, which is um, adulting and working. So adulting to them basically means growing up and finally getting a job and joining the workforce and so on.
For me, I think it'll be a mixture of everything because I am excited to start working because everyone wants money at the end of the day. And but then my family has been saying like, oh, the moment you start working, your life ends there. And I was just, it's just been getting me thinking, like, what do you mean by that? Because I understand that once you start working, that's your whole life forever, which I think is something that your generation really represents in that statement because you guys tend to work without taking any breaks yourself, without enjoying life, I would say.
Mm,
So while I am excited, I also am a bit scared because
mm.
I don't want my life to quote unquote end like that. You know.
Okay, okay. Rick?
Um, how I feel about adulting and joining the workforce. I think fully anxious. I'm aware of the issues that plague the industry that I'm going into. Again, a lot of them stem from my parents' generation and the generation before that. Things like overworking, corporate culture, giving more of yourself to the company than to yourself, to the point where you're more of an employee than a person,
Yeah.
and issues like that. And I am worried that I'm going to have to make sacrifices. But at the same time, that because I know I'm more conscious about these issues, I'm not going to sacrifice to the point where there is no gain. There's nothing to gain from the sacrifice. And that's the part that makes me anxious, that I might not achieve the level of success that I want
Mm,
because I'm trying to retain my um, quote unquote humanity,
mm.
so that I don't become this burnt out, constantly exhausted human being.
Okay,
And I am retaining that mental health in exchange of success or money. I think
okay,
that's the most anxious part, lah.
right. Okay, so um, this was a interesting one, whereby there is a mixture between a mixture of responses between excitement and also being cautious, of course. But one thing that all four of them agree upon is they like making money. I mean, who doesn't like to make money, right? So you can rest assured that this generation will demand for what they are worth. Um, they will not accept peanuts to work and stay loyal. It's gone are the days where we are expected to slowly learn, uh, to slowly earn, to achieve what we have today, right? Majority of the time, uh, this generation, Gen Z, uh, some of them paid a lot more higher than the other generations, the Gen X, the Gen Ys, and the Boomers. Often, you know, casting a jealous eye here and there, that kind of thing. You know, and what we usually do is we always compare ourselves, right? We always say, oh, when I was 25, I was only earning 1,000 ringgit, right? Hence, you should also start low and earn your keep and start working your way up like all of us, right? This is how typically uh, we think, and the more we think like this, the more we will tend to lose more than gain, right? So go to the next one.
Joining workforce, definitely excited. Uh, because earn money and stuff, ma. So about adulting, right? I know throughout this interview we've been talking kind of bad about boomers, but for
Mm.
me, I felt like when I start to grow up, I feel like I understand boomers more and I
Mm.
respect them for it because, for example, a different type of perspective, I move out alone.
Mm.
I stay out alone and I start to feel like, wow, my mom is a superwoman.
Mm.
How can you clean all the house, the dust, the food you cook, and then you go and work? You know, this kind of adulting life is
Mm.
very hard to adapt and manage when you have so many things going around you. So there's that. And also I feel like being adult and joining out in a career makes you think you need to be no, makes you feel like you have to be humble. Because I used to have a mindset where like, or if I join a production internship, what do I have to do? I will be a PA, right? Why don't
Mm.
they just give me a more important role? But that was when in a Mr. Zhang class, he said like, oh, I think you guys think too highly of yourself. That's when it's like cross my mind like, oh, are we the younger people really think like that? Does it make us like weak or something? So yeah, lor, I feel like going adulthood is exciting, it's hard, and makes you humble. Yes.
Okay. So there are portions of Gen Z, well, at least one voice in Gen Z, that finally realizes that they actually do think too highly of themselves. You know, that they want certain things and they should get those things, right? So I put this in because I'm happy that at least they one at least one voice has started to reflect on why we are what we are teaching in class and so on. Next comes something that when I pose this question to them, um, uh, I mentioned that this is actually a dream for many of us, the work-life balance. But let's see what they think about work-life balance.
Work-life balance for me is important, but then again, I am the kind of person that tends to like push that aside because I am a bit of a workaholic when it comes to working.
Mhm.
Working from home to me is also quite important, even though I know that's not very conventional these days. But as someone that has, I plan to go into the marketing industry instead of the production industry.
Yeah.
As someone who's worked multiple marketing jobs and stuff like that, I realized that being in the office is quite unproductive, I would say, because you finish your work and then you're just sitting at your desk and then you're just waiting for more work to come in. And that waiting period can be hours sometimes. And you basically just sit at the desk and you're pretending to work when you're not really working at the same time. So it's very unproductive and very boring.
Mm.
Whereas if I'm at home, I think people have that mentality, but like, oh, if you're at home, you're gonna relax, like you're gonna be too comfortable, too lazy to work. But I don't think that's the case. I can work at home and I can do the housework. I can cook for myself. I can do other things that are also equally as productive as working while waiting for more work to come in when I'm at home.
Right.
Work-life balance is also important because it goes back to what I said before. If you're gonna give your whole life to just working and earning money, then what's the point of even living at the same time?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Henry.
Um, for me, I think, of course, work-life balance is important. Um, and in terms of um, working remotely, working from home, I guess it's maybe just down to preference. As of recent, there's a lot more people who are um, realizing that you don't have to go to a physical office to work. You can just work from home, and people are able to have more work-life balance working from home. But for me, I feel like that's not the case because I've worked in social media and I've had to work from home. And um, yeah, even though you get to work from home, if you have a company itself with a culture that doesn't have work-life balance, you won't get work-life balance even though you're at home, because you could be, like for example, like of how working from home doesn't necessarily mean work-life balance. If I were at work and I clock out at 6 p.m., I can go home and my boss would be less inclined to message me about work after hours. But in my experience, when I worked from home that time, I could be working all the way until 11 p.m., 1 a.m., and they would think it's okay because I work from home. I'm at home only. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that is not work-life balance. So, yeah, it just depends on your workplace and the work culture. And yeah, work-life balance is important in choosing an occupation for me, obviously. But the reality is that Malaysian companies, Malaysian work culture has little to no work-life balance. And um, for me, it's more just about, um, I think, um, looking for work-life balance is kind of like what you said, it's kind of a dream at this point. Because for me, I would rather focus on
What is it?
an occupation that I have passion for, and that maybe have a good working environment. Yeah, because for me, work-life balance in this industry, I don't know whether it's I think it's gonna stay a dream. Yeah.
Okay. Eric?
Well, definitely important. Work-life balance. Well, actually, like what they mentioned, are you gonna enjoy your work? Are you gonna spend your whole time looking for money? Are you gonna hang out at night with your friends? Those kind of thing is really personal. And for me, working from home after going through MCO, I don't think all the way working from home is that healthy. I do believe I used to think like no big deal. What do you mean you need human interaction? What do you mean you need to talk to people face to face? I understand that after 2 years of MCO. When I come out, I struggle with communication also.
Okay.
So ideally, I do think like 5 days a week, 7 days a week, right? Maybe 3 days you go to office, then the other days you work from home. That would be very, for me, it's work-life balance already.
Okay.
Mm.
So this is a subject matter that Gen Z and millennials take to heart. Okay, we need to ask ourselves, why are we not attracting young people? It is time for us to reflect how we portray ourselves in management, in class, in the content that we give our students and the students pay for, right? We need to learn, or we need to start to learn new technologies, new methods, with the objective to make things better, right? When when um when MCO started during COVID, and we were all caught up, right? We scrambled to put our lectures and tutorials online and so on. But we need to understand that the philosophies and the methodologies are very different, and it's very easy to copy and paste whatever that we do from a lecture into an online slide, dump it there and say, there you go. It's easy to do that, but it's not the most responsible thing. So I believe most of you would have seen this article by one of the local dailies, whereby it states that 72% of Malaysian students.
You muted already.
Julian, you are muted.
Muted.
Julian, unmute yourself. You have muted yourself.
How did I
Okay.
mute myself? I didn't even do anything.
The mystery of technology.
So where did I stop? There you see Gabriel also muted himself.
From this side, start from this side here.
Start from this side.
Okay. Can, no problem. Okay, so as many of you would have read in this local daily, 72% of Malaysian students are not keen on higher education after SPM, preferring gig economy or influencing, right? And most of you will say, what is this influencing business and so on, that kind of thing, right? So this is an alarming figure, right? It basically means 390,000 students from 560,000 students said they have no interest in pursuing higher education. Only 170,000 said expressed their interest. Right? So let's look at what gig economy and being a influencer basically means. While the gig economy presents flexibility for work, gig economy basically means becoming a Grab driver, becoming a Grab rider, and so on. Right? I work when I want to work. But these jobs are really difficult to sustain in the long run. I mean, if you're young, you're 18, 19, it's easy. But once you hit 50, like the presenter himself, it becomes difficult, right? The lure of being a key opinion leader is becoming a viable career option. And as educators, we need to revamp our syllabus to cater for these new jobs, even if we don't agree with it, right? Now, I have an example. This was when I was working with another university about 12 years ago, right? And this was the student in question has become quite a huge key opinion leader. He came in with his parent. And I remember this case because I was the one who counseled him. And he told his dad that he actually doesn't want to study. He wants to be a singer, he wants to be an entertainer, and so on. But, Asian parents being Asian parents, no, you need to have a degree, and so on. So, long story short, he dropped out, and now he basically doesn't even need a degree, and he's earning more than you, more than me, definitely more than me, and yeah, right. So we basically need to now think, right, this new jobs that are coming out, how do we progress further, you know what is communication theory going to do for that influencer in his line of work, right? And the third question, the third um, statement there, higher education does not mean a better job. I think this one can only be answered by all of you lah, who are educators, and me as well. Okay, so it's open for discussion later. Um, right. So again, in Deloitte's May 2020 report, right, most of them, and this will not go away, the expectancy of hybrid work is preferred with Gen Z. And this will not go away. This will definitely not go away. COVID has proven that, and we as educators, we need to embrace and be the ones who champion hybrid working for this generation, right? Because if we don't change, they are going to go out and they are going to be frustrated, and they are going to be the ones who want hybrid work, right? We as educationists need to change the stigma around hybrid work by first changing our content to facilitate hybrid studies. This does not mean fitting your physical content online because it doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. I know it doesn't work, right? So on to the last few slides. I know I only have 10 minutes, Okay. And this is something that is, we refer to this generation as strawberries and snowflake because they break easily, right? Um, but let's hear what they have to say lah. Okay.
I don't get triggered. I find it quite funny, but like how we get called a snowflake or strawberry,
Yeah.
your generation has the Karens and stuff like that. So I think
Yeah.
it's fair. Well, I don't think it defines our generation. There is a small population of people our age that spend too much time online, that become a bit too sensitive when they are encountered with the real world. Because online people are more sensitive than they are in real life. I don't know how it works that way, but it is the way it is lah. So when you're online, you're more respectful of people's pronouns because it's there for you to see. But in real life, we kind of just assume your gender based on how you're dressed lah. So some people might get a bit annoyed when we mislabel them and they will bring up this whole the lecture about like stuff like that lah. So that's what people we call chronically online, which I do agree that they are a bit of a snowflake lah. So
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So are you triggered by boomers calling your generation snowflake? No, because I felt like they go through a very hard time to see her become like this. Like talking about the privilege thing, they don't have no privilege to talk about mental health.
Mm.
So I understand why they see us as snowflake or weaker people in general.
Mm.
But I do not think these terms define our whole generation. It's more like 50-50. I do see a lot of people from my generation are very, very snowflake, especially on the internet.
Mm.
They may be not in real life, but confirm on internet. For example, very obvious one is from hip hop fans. Just like example, a blog or Snoop Dogg touch Jenny from Blackpink by the waist when taking photo. Boom, sure got blocked about this one. They go through all about the news. Just simple things like that. So I do think it's true. There are quite many snowflakes among us, but I do not think it defines the whole generation.
Right. So this is interesting right now, because even they themselves, the Gen Z, do acknowledge that some parts of Generation Z are very sensitive to certain things and so on. Yeah. Okay.
I think the
Just need to move on. Okay. So because I have not much time, so what are the things that Gen Z are worried about, right? What are they incredibly worried about? Security, health, finances, social connections, keeping up with the change. These are the things that most of them are incredibly worried about. Okay, this was of course done by Edelman, but more importantly is this survey hypothesis that is done in 2018 about the Gen Z. So number one is career aspiration. Number two, career development. Number three, working styles, which I've more or less talked about a lot of the things that are in here. Core values, right? Behavior and character, education and learning, and diversity. But when you look at number 6 and number 7, are we worried? We should be, because how prepared is the university to tackle education and learning for Gen Z? They are re-evaluating the cost and benefit. They are proactively seeking out learning opportunities outside of the university via online and so on. Are we prepared? Only you guys can answer that question, right? So the thing is, are the universities left behind? That is the question that senior management has to answer lah. Even politicians are infiltrating the Gen Z space for headroom, right? Taylor's University has a digital and tech content department inside marketing to constantly churn out social media content. And the team comprises of 24 and 22, 29-year-olds and financially compensated. How do I know? Because 80% of that team I have taught before, and they're working there as heads and leads. So this is not a marketing decision that, but a university decision to recognize that the landscape has changed. This is also not a matter of other universities that can pay more but this is universities recognizing that the landscape has changed and adapted to it. Okay, so where do you think UOW are in terms of headspace for Gen Z? These are our prospective clients. Have we adapted, or at least try to adapt? Okay, even politicians are taking to, this infiltrating this headspace, right? Those are the kind of questions we need to ask each other. So lastly, my last slide. In summary, there are 4 things that how we need to identify with Gen Z. The first one is acceptance. We do not need to basically understand all pronouns, all identity, and whatsoever, but we need to be open to accept diversity and not lump everything as a trend, a fad, or a fast. We need to accept that the landscape has changed and we are now at the risk of being a boomer dinosaur. Boomer is bad enough already. Boomer dinosaur is worse. Okay? Number 2, we need to listen. We need to listen without prejudice. We need to listen without pandering. But we need to listen with the objective to solve the issue. Number 3, of course, we need to understand mental health. We cannot dismiss Gen Z's mental health as this is just part of growing up. We cannot always use the phrase, toughen up, the season will pass, and so will this issue. Right? The issue goes deeper, and once you recognize that they need help, the wall will come down and you will get a much better connection. And of course, the last thing is respect. There should be no superiority complex. Respect goes both ways, and many Gen Z want to be recognized as part of the society. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Julian. Thank you very much for listening to me for 1 hour and 15 minutes. I hope I have not bored you, and I hope I still have a job on Monday. Thank you very much.
Okay, Boomer. Thank you very much. I believe it was very enlightening, very much for me too, especially on that term unlearning. That is something that I need to practice also. Because Julian, your age and my age not far, not very far. So for us, it's basically something which we really need to recognize and we need to tackle it head on. Now, I would like to open it up for any of you who have any questions. Maybe we can take 1 or 2, because I believe Julian over here is a vast well of knowledge that we'll be able to tap on, and maybe there are certain things that some of us will really want to ask. Okay, you can just unmute yourself. You can ask the questions. It was that, yes. Miss Jennifer, please.
I don't have a question, but just a comment. It's a great presentation. It's very inspiring. And I'm about to actually, I came in late for the meeting because we were talking, myself and Rajesh, talking about what to prepare for the next board agenda. One of the agendas of the board is for us to grow enrollment. But looking at the presentation today, perhaps we have to really think a bit out of the box, that any plans to grow enrollment, but they won't come in, the students. We have to adapt to their own lifestyle. So very, very, very inspiring for business model, this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Jennifer.
Thank
You
you,
will keep your,
Julian.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
Julian.
Prof. Wan, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think you've done an excellent job, even though you can be the daddy of our foundation's students, but you're always the person that are able to adapt, change, and make our students really enjoy their life. And that's why I actually asked you to do this topic, because I know you can relate to them very, very well. And I think it's really, really important for us as an educator, because the Gen Z is the generations that we need to educate. And I think most important thing is we need to know we are different. Yeah, our life, our experience that make us different. There are different generations, but it's so important for us to recognize their strength and not to force them into our model, but we ourselves change because the world is changing. So Julian, thank you very much. I think you've done an excellent thing. It's a lot of beginning call, because I think sometimes as a lecturers, as an educator, we tends to always tell the student, when I was old, I was like this, why you cannot do like that? But we have to admit that the world has changed, and we, the older generation, play a role to make these younger generations who they are. And therefore, it's important for us to recognize we need to help them. Yeah. And I think, as what Jennifer said, we really need to be look at a lot of things. And that also includes, I think, 1 year, 2 year plus, when I have a conversation with you, we also talk about how to use TikTok as our, social media marketing. And I was still saying, I don't know what is TikTok. How should I learn? Maybe Julian, you can go and dance at the TikTok and teach us how to do the advertisement. So I think a lot of things we need to rethink. I think it's really good. Thank you, Julian. Thank you.
Right.
I got one question. I care. But before that, I think Professor Dr. Huan called Julian daddy just now, so that sounds a bit wrong.
He's the daddy of the foundation students, not me. Okay?
So, what is your advice, Julian? For a lot of us, we are mostly all here boomers. What is the main advice for academics, to be able to connect, not only from a knowledge perspective, but also from a relational perspective? What do you think? Because when we try too hard, they can also detect, right? And when we don't try, well, that's where they call us okay boomer lah. So what are your thoughts about that? How or rather how do you relate so well with them? I mean, if we don't know your age, we probably still call you a 20-year-old, okay?
I think you relate more to the younger audience than me lah. But anyway, a lot of it has to do with us first. That's why when Gabriel said the word unlearning, he's fascinated with the word unlearning. When I heard that word, I was also taken aback that for all this while, for us being in education, we have always be the face in the class. We've taught in front of the class and so on. So I this only my opinion lah. I believe that over the years, as the more we do that, the more confident we are, the more egotistical we are in in sort of not changing our ways of doing things, and hence we don't look at this unlearning part, not looking at the reflection part. Okay, that means we don't reflect on what we have done or what we are doing in class, and we always think that, oh, okay, you know, I'm just going to use back the same slides that I've used 10 years ago. It's okay because I'm confident in class and I'm just going to blurt out everything and so on. That's where the gap occurs. That's where the students lose respect for you. And if you want to regain back that trust, you want to regain back that respect in class, you have to be basically in the know. You need to be updated in a lot of things that they are interested in. You know.
Good. Thank you, Julian. We have one more question before we wrap the day out. Dr. Loh, can you hear us, Dr. Loh? You put up your hand. Yes.
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 Thank you so much. I can't wait to express my appreciation to Julian. I really love, especially the summary, the last slide, because I feel that these are all very universal elements, not specific to Gen Z. Because all these universal elements are important to bind people together, even among us, even among colleagues, not necessarily specific to Gen Z. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Loh. Thank you for your comment over there.
Hello.
So, anything else? You're breaking up. Okay. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It has been, yeah. All right. Thank you very much. It has been a very enlightening day. Just a little bit on marketing. The final session for this forum series will be in a fortnight's time. This will be conducted by Ms. Leong Michelle, and she'll be speaking on how our common modules build our graduate attributes. So, ladies and gentlemen, please register, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. For those of you who are in KL, it is getting dark already, so please be careful. Take care. Have a very good day. Bye-bye.